not any sporting events, but a lot going on overall. But we've been having a busy week already. We've had our intercollegiate athletics committee. We had our repopulation of student athletes and starting workouts this week. We had great results with our academic success from the past semester, the best ever with a 3.44 overall, best on record. So a lot of great results there, given all the challenges and the change and pivoting to online. That turned out really, really well. But it was a big week to be able to start to have our facilities start to open up for our student athletes to utilize again. So went over and watched football as they were working in their, I think, 6 different groups this morning that they came through the weight room, then some working outside, and then they'd shift, and then whole nother group would come in. But really proud of our folks for the work and the effort that has been going on. Obviously, last week a lot of activity and discussion, and for us, a lot of learning and listening, and to our student athletes, and dealing with the racism and the issues that have been across the country. We're no different, and we responded, and we had a good Zoom call with all our student athletes wherever they were on Thursday, and then had an in-person meeting with the student athletes that were in Columbia and near here. We had President Choi and police chief from Columbia, the police chief from Mizzou, our head coaches, and a lot of good discussion going on, and really trying to create other action that we can take from that. But really proud of the football team, and having a walk down to the courthouse on Wednesday and registering 62 people to vote, and just encouraging people to be involved and make things better. But my first hire as an AD way back in 1995 was the head basketball coach. At Portland State, they were starting basketball back. I think it hadn't been back in 11 years. And I hired Richie McKay, and my first hire here at Mizzou, major hire at Mizzou, was Conzo Martin. Both basketball coaches, both Black, but they were the best people that I thought for the job. And did that make me a better person? No, but I think it may, for hiring them, but it made me a better person knowing each of those folks, and diversity inclusion makes us all better, and that's what we're about. Our core values in athletics are about respect and integrity and gratitude and humility, and doing that together, and that's what we're here for. And a lot of learning going on, and you would expect that at a higher education institution, but a lot of learning going on in athletics as well. Let's see, repopulation. We're anticipating, and we're working towards a starting of September 5th, and obviously the repopulation of our student athletes are a part of that. But just planning for the sport of football to start. That's the big question everyone asks, but volleyball and cross country and soccer as well, and we're planning for that. And then, given the realities of the situation at that time, we may have to pivot and change. And I just ask that our fans and supporters give us a little leeway this year. It's going to be an unusual year. It could be I think a very exciting year, and excited about what this fall brings. But it's probably going to look different than anything that we've ever had before. So a lot of things going into that, a lot of things to bring our student athletes back, and not all our staff are working on site, but we've been going through a lot. Had a budget reductions as we look forward to moving into the next fiscal year. We were estimating around $16.5 million, and we did a lot of reduction in our overall operations, and some of that was HR, and then other moves to help come up with that $16 million. So I've spoken probably longer than any of you have ever heard me speak, but a lot on my mind right now, a lot of things going on, and I'm really proud of the team I work with.
Questions for Jim?
Yeah, Jim, Gabe DeArmond. First of all, what went into your guys' decision to change the testing approach when kids came back? And I've got a follow-up after that, but I'd like to kind of find out what's going on there first.
Sure. As expect a good question from you, Gabe, but as I shared before, we were listening to all the latest, and then I think as that week got closer and as people started to have positive tests, President Choi and our medical team and all of us made the decision to pivot there and test our student athletes and staff that were coming in, and so that was a reason. Probably a little bit of change, and we wanted to make sure where we were at that point in time. So I think that was why we did it.
What kind of talks did you have with the guy? I know you guys have chosen not to share whether there were any positive tests, but there have been some across the country. You guys can control where they're at for like 2 or 3 hours a day, but what discussions did you have with the kids about the other 21 hours?
Yeah, I think, and they're going to listen to their coaches more than a stuffy old AD, but they are telling them that they're part of a team, they're part of a bigger than themselves, and that they need to take responsibility as well. And so, will people break from that? Yeah, but I think they're really focused on on being better. They're from what I saw, really. Our strength and conditioning coaches said they came back in pretty good shape, and so more than not in great shape. So I think a lot of focus on what they can do as a team, and I think that will keep them from probably exposing themselves and their team members for more. All right, we're done. Thanks.
I'm sorry. I didn't know if we were I apologize. I've got one for you, Coach. Seren Petro at WHB in Kansas City, Jim. I think I called you Coach. I apologize, Jim.
Yeah.
Coach Drinkwitz, you mentioned the march and then getting everybody registered to vote. And I know that must be, as you mentioned, a prideful situation. A lot of people kind of emulating what Coach Drinkwitz did. I don't know if he was the first, but he was one of the first that I heard. I asked him when we had a chance to talk with him about whether or not, he thought things would carry forward, right? That's one of the big things of momentum this time around, is that, it can't just be one-time reaction here, that there has to continue to be actions moving forward. I asked him if there had been discussions with you, with the university, with the chancellor, if players wanted to protest and kneel during the football games. Is that something that you've discussed? It seemed like Coach Drinkwitz felt like that was off in the distance and something that he wasn't, maybe you guys hadn't tackled yet. If you haven't, when do you think you'll discuss that subject?
I think that's an ongoing discussion. I think that's something that we're. I think as Eli put it, it's a team decision. It's something that you work out as a group, and our student athletes are part of a team, but obviously they're individuals as well. And so I think we're in a different world. I think. With the NFL, making the statement they did, and just realizing that maybe we've been, blind to a lot of things that our Black student athletes and others have been exposed to, and so I think all of that's going to be something that's evolving. So I couldn't say, yes or no today, because I don't know what it'll look like, and it'll be something that we work out together.
You mentioned having hired two African-American basketball coaches. Basketball's got a lot better representation when it comes to African-American head coaches. College football lagging way, way behind. What would be your, theory, if you would, as to why there is such a stark difference between the hiring of African-American coaches in the two sports?
I don't know. I thought you were going, have I looked at, black coaches to be head football coaches? Absolutely. And talked to them this time around again. But for a variety of reasons didn't get, have that opportunity, or they didn't have that opportunity, whatever what it ended up being. But I think, there's more and more coordinators. We've got a great young one in Ryan Walters as defensive coordinator, and when you give them opportunity in those coordinator positions, I think that can fill the pipeline with really qualified individuals that can have an opportunity. And I think Ryan will have that opportunity in the future.
Just one more quick follow-up. I wasn't specifically talking about you necessarily,
Yeah.
right? And your hiring, but it is interesting to hear your personal experience on it. But is it a thing that it's, this is just something, again, the protesting that's going on has kind of awakened everybody's eyes to kind of look around, and maybe it's never been talked about, and that's been the problem, is that there hasn't been a real focus on the fact that there is such a shortage?
Yeah, I think there is, and I think that's why the NFL has done some things. And I think for us as Division I, great thing for us to do internally. We want to look at having a group that's a cross section of people that'll help us identify candidates and try to create more diverse pools anytime we have an opening. And I think those are solutions we need to work towards. In each department. And so I think there's opportunity. There's a lot of talented guys that haven't got their shot yet that I think you'll see in the future.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for doing this. You mentioned having a meeting with everyone on campus, kind of about some of these social justice issues. Was there any takeaway you had? Anything that really stuck out to you on what you learned from listening to your players and staff?
Just to reinforce that I haven't walked in their shoes. I think that no one that's not black, that men or a man or a woman hasn't walked in their shoes and hasn't experienced the things that whether subtle or overt, that they they're or intentional that they've experienced, and just it hurts, because we're all part of the same race. And I think that hurts that they have had those things. Anytime anyone is slighted, feels that way, I just, you want it to be a better place. And I think we can all, we can make Mizzou better. We can make Missouri better. We can make this nation a heck of a lot better. And so we're going to listen, and we're going to learn, and we're going to keep moving forward and take positive steps towards that.
Hey, Jim. No, you mentioned that $16.5 million and just the budget and sharing that. I guess I was just curious, what kind of went into those decisions, and how do you feel about the budget going forward?
Yeah, I don't know if I've lost more hair, but it's been the COVID time of dealing with what's going to be reality, and where are we going to be as far as financially, and and how do we do that and not impact student athlete experience and sports and things the best we can. And so a lot of thought, a lot of meetings, both within our immediate staff, but then also across campus with President Choi and Rhonda Gibler, the CFO of the institution. And so we kind of collectively came towards that and with the results that we had.
I have a related question. What % of capacity for football games are you expecting to let in with social distancing requirements?
Great question. Yeah, I'd like to be able to tell you what it is, but we're trying to plan, we're renewing our tickets, and by the way, we're a little bit above last year's renewal rate, and at this point in time with renewals and all, and so we have good momentum. It's upsetting that we can't take full advantage of it, or we haven't been able to with the COVID challenge. But I think it's going to be a range and probably 17 scenarios of how we do it. But we're trying to wait until we make that final decision as much as we can. But it could be anywhere from 50% to 75 to closer to full capacity as in some games. But I think that'll depend on the health officials. As we get information, that'll depend on the fans, and we're going to do a good job of educating of what we're doing to keep it a healthy place. And I may have mentioned on the last call, there's 10% of the people right now that are probably not going to come back and for health reasons or whatever, come to a social setting, and 15% that are ready to go today. And maybe that's growing as far as maybe it's 20% that are ready to go back. But that middle, we've got to make sure that they understand what we're doing, and we try to do it as effectively and safe as possible.
Okay. And then related to that, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch did a story where they quoted you saying you expected 20% revenue shortfall. Is that still your thinking?
Yeah, two good questions. And it's a guesstimation, if you will, of where we think we will be. If you look at our football, that's the largest one as far as outside of our television revenue. Where that's at, we're like I said, a little bit ahead on season ticket renewals. But if we're not able to allow single game sales, then that's probably a 25% hit there. So if we just allow all our season ticket holders in, and that's what the stadium looks like, then we're looking at a little bit more than 20%. But if we can have some, then I think we can hit that 20% or hopefully go above.
Thanks.
And with the season ticket renewals, would those be refunded if you're not able to have fans in the stands?
Yes, and that's what we sent out something to our season ticket holders maybe a couple months ago now, as far as just that, we're asking you to renew the tickets. We don't know what the season's going to look like and how many fans we're going to be able to have, but we'll allow you to get a refund or put the deposit towards next year.
Gotcha.
Hey, Jim, you mentioned how you're leaning on health officials, and I just asking about professional sports. They're starting to make some news about the NASCAR inviting some fans to come back this weekend. How much does the SEC or maybe yourself kind of reach out to other professional leagues that are already trying to kind of get things going? Like, what can you learn or take from them, and do you keep in touch with them in any way to find out how they're doing it to keep people safe?
Actually, Commissioner Sankey is doing a great job with that and reaching out to those different leaders in those different organizations. And so we're trying to learn from them as it goes. And we have at least a couple of meetings with our ADs with the SEC each week. And we're continuing to take it in and learn from and adjust and maybe plan a little bit differently because of what's occurring. So hopefully they get out there a ways and have some good success and keep it moving forward.
Jim, you talked about having, guesstimates on what the revenue hit might be this year, and a lot of things are fluid right now. But how do you go about your thought process of trying to balance where some of those impacts are felt and how those impacts can maybe be insulated from your student athletes, since that's what you're trying to focus on all the time? Yeah,
so I'll take the latter part. Looking at, we're not reducing coaching staffs and trying to those people that are daily with the student athletes on the medical side and physical training, trying to utilize those people the best we can. And those are areas kind of that we've tried to make stronger. The mental health area. Nutrition, we hired a nutritionist during the middle of the pandemic and a new one. And so those folks that are directly impacting our student athletes, we're trying to keep that as strong as possible and then make reductions in other areas.
Jim, the AP has reported a couple different places that their estimate for costs for COVID tests are about $125 each. Do you have a ballpark figure for what you guys are spending per test, or how much you anticipate spending total on making sure everyone is tested properly and is safe?
Yeah, and have had that conversation with MU Health, and right now they're sending out the test to get results, and so they're looking at something that they'll be doing more internally in the future, and it's around $150 right now for the tests that we've done, and they've said it's going to be significantly less when they have their operation in place and able to do the testing results in-house.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Jim, just one question, two questions for you. First, you mentioned the September 5th date for football first. Would you allow other sports in the fall to compete before that? Volleyball has their black and gold date, usually 2 weeks before that, just to make sure that that's clear. Or is September 5th the day where everybody can start?
No, I think that's just the official, first big day of football for us. But I think there's other competitions that are scheduled before that. Nick, do you have that?
I don't have it in front of me, but yes, there are. Yep.
Yeah, I think volleyball starts earlier than that, and there may be cross country meet, or soccer may have something before that. So I just look at that as a date that everyone's looking at because of the fans and football.
Gotcha. Just wanted to clarify that. And then you mentioned how busy of a week you kind of had so far. What's next on your plate? Looking at the end of this week, being in next week, what's the next thing to kind of get as back to whatever a new normal for you or for the athletic department would be that's right in front of you next?
It just, to successfully, bring all our teams back. And so we're phasing that, and volleyball comes in next week, and then other sports throughout. And then the first part of July, I think it is July 6th for baseball, softball, and track and field, and tennis and golf. So a big group coming back there. Nick and his group have done some videos on, how we expect them to socially distance, how to enter the buildings, and what's going to happen, and try to give them a heads up as they come back. So a lot of work, the prep work, and have a successful repopulation, if you will, there. And it's quickly turning to, okay, what are all the facets of bringing fans to a game? What is that going to entail? Everything from tailgating and parking to entering the facility, and how do we do that, and how are we going to seat it if we have to restrict on seating, and what are some plans there? So a lot of layers there that are top of mind, and with us, but across our conference and the nation, everyone's dealing with it. And so those are a big list, and it's continuing to grow.
Jim, I understand that the goal is obviously to win every game, and that doesn't change. But there's a lot of thought that with the budgets, especially for first-year coaches who maybe haven't seen their teams, that kind of the way coaches are evaluated this year changes. In your role, does the way you will evaluate what these teams do during the season change because of what they've faced over the last few months?
Yeah, I think, all of us are going to be, you guys, with the power of the pen or the typewriter, but, evaluating what does the team look like, and, how are they going to perform? And that'll be really, it'll be interesting. It's a good question. I think it obviously keep in consideration of that, of everything going on and reality. And so it's not all about wins and losses, and it's how you are working with your student athletes and preparing during an unusual time. And so as I said before, we've got a great group of people that are really leading in a positive way and with our teams. So really pleased with that so far. So we've been winning on the COVID front, if I can put that, out to you.
Jim, just overall, your optimism maybe on things going, as normal as they can in the fall with football being played in all the sports. Optimism now versus maybe how you felt a couple months ago. Is it better, worse, the same?
Yeah, I think so. I think we talked, last time it was going to be different, a month from when we last talked, or, is it 3 months that we have until September, so it's July, August, September, it's going to look differently. And my optimism grows, I guess, each month that we get closer. And I think probably everyone, I'm not different than most people. And so I'm hoping that, by September, it's really an exciting moment. And I think everyone can celebrate. And I think it'll be really, really entertaining because you have no idea, what's going to happen. And so I think that's a fun part of sport. And, for our student athletes is they prepare during an unusual time. So I think it'll be a fun fall.
Any word on the postseason ban for the softball and baseball teams?
Have not. No, that's still sitting with the NCAA.
Do you have any idea of when you might hear back about that?
It's a weekly question.
So you ask them every week?
Not them per se, but actually commissioners asking on our behalf.
Jim, is there any update on when you think you guys will be allowed to start like actual contact practicing for football and other sports?
The football subcommittee working on that a little bit. There has been some talk, and Nick might know a little bit better, but some talk of maybe starting it a couple weeks early, or not necessarily contact, but teams working out together a little bit early. Nick, what was the latest on that?
The NCAA will vote on that, I believe, next Wednesday, the 17th of June, from the recommendations from the football oversight committee. And then my understanding is it could start sometime in normal summer access, maybe in mid-July, and then with a ramp up to a normal start date for fall camp. So it'd give you the opportunity to get back some of the time that the majority of programs lost in spring. Now, it may not be with contact, but opportunity, at least for the coaches, to get out and do walkthroughs and things like that on a limited basis. Anything else for the good of the order?
You can ask Nick questions. You go ahead.
Jim, I had a question about name, likeness, and image.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and I don't know if I understand it completely, but they want to try to keep schools out of it in terms of making deals. But I just wanted to know if you could share some internal discussions or thoughts on how you manage something like that if you can't control it. And just
it's the devil's in the detail. The NCAA put out some broad things on that. Obviously, you've seen having discussions. I think it'll take some kind of federal legislation because of all the states having different types of rules and to have something consistent across the country. So it'll take some action there. What that looks like, I don't know. But I think, the protecting, giving opportunity for students, I think is a good thing that other students might have, but you don't want to, the thing is worrying about is the, the boosters getting involved in the, illegal recruiting, if you will. And those are the devils in the details of how, and what's the valuation and how do you evaluate that, and who runs and who education of the student athletes. And so they don't sign sign a long-term contract that ties them up for a long period of time, that, you know, beyond just college, and at least they understand what they're doing if that comes to that. So a lot of things that have to be worked out, that I think by this January we should have a better idea of what that looks like.